Welcome to another interview featuring members of CARSP. My name is Christine Dalbel, and I am a member of the editorial committee for the Canadian Association of Road Safety Professionals Safety Network newsletter, in addition to being the Managing Director of Public Affairs of CAA. I'm delighted that one of my tasks is to speak with one of our distinguished members of our association and share it with you. Today, I am honored to be talking with none other than the president of CARSP herself, Dr. Liraz Fridman. Dr. Fridman is the Road Safety Supervisor for the City of Guelph. After graduating from her PhD program at York University, she completed 2 postgraduate fellowships jointly at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto and the Alberta Children's Hospital Research Institute in Calgary in the areas of injury prevention and speed management. Her passion for equity, injury prevention, and road safety led her to a role in municipal government where she developed the first community road safety strategy, which is now being adopted using a Vision Zero framework in Guelph. And here is my interview with Dr. Fridman. Welcome, Dr. Fridman, and thank you so much for joining us today. So my first question is, if you had to share sort of fun fact about yourself, let's start there, to get to know you a little bit. If you had to share a fun fact about yourself, what would it be?
Sure. So I thought a little bit about this, and in terms of something that really resonates with me, I think it's both fun and sort of integral to who I am, but it's that I'm trilingual. So my parents actually immigrated to Canada when I was about 2.5 years old, and so I grew up speaking both Russian and Hebrew in my household, and I learned English when I started around the first grade, so around the age of 6. But anytime we have big family get-togethers, I still go back to my native languages, and so that's one fun fact about myself.
That's really awesome. I'm also trilingual actually, but bilingual parents, very similar to yours, French and
Oh,
English. And then I added in Spanish because I married into a Spanish family. So it's really nice to have those different languages and helps understand different cultures. And I think your brain just works really differently when you speak many languages.
absolutely.
So road safety, what really led you to this field? It's funny, in a couple of the interviews that I've had with other members, a lot of people it's never really a linear road, no pun intended, to start working in road safety. So this has actually been a really unique question, just to hear about the different kinds of ways that people are brought into this industry. So how did you begin working in road safety, and what led you here?
Sure. So, like many others, I landed in this role a bit haphazardly. So, I'm actually trained as an injury epidemiologist. I did my training at York University back when I was doing my PhD. And I was interested in looking at the connection sort of broadly about how policy affects injury rates. So, that was everything from falls to drowning to poisonings. And of course, road violence and collisions were one of those variables. And it was at that point that I realized sort of the true burden of road violence and how it affects our day-to-day lives, as well as the preventability of these tragedies. And that's something that really stuck with me, and the rest is sort of history. After spending years as an academic, I wanted to do more of that real world good and implement some of my learnings. And that's what brought me into a municipal policy making, where I am now as the road safety supervisor at the City of Guelph. But I like to think that I wear 2 hats in my role, because I understand the policy making side and the implications of a lot of how these interventions get implemented, from the financial side to how government decisions are made, but also the research and academic side to thinking about projects more holistically, and some of the evaluation components that are really important in road safety. So it's been an interesting way to bridge some of that gap between the implementation science components and those academic or research backgrounds.
No, those are 2 really awesome backgrounds to bring together, because it is so important in trying to move some road safety issues forward, is not just understanding the issue, but understanding how to implement a solution as well. So that's a wonderful background. So given that you're in road safety and you've been doing some really interesting work, what do you think at this time is the most pressing need in road safety?
So if you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said speed. It's everything I did my academic background on. I still am very interested in speed management and how that engineering kind of component affects the day-to-day lives of people, the impact of their lives, if people were to make better choices when it comes to speed. But actually, these days, I believe one of the most pressing needs is something that's a little bit more intangible, especially from a research background. And that's looking more holistically at this idea of road safety culture. We talk a lot about engineering out the problem so we don't die from poor decision making. But I think we really need to dive a little bit further into thinking about what makes people accountable to each other. We don't run each other over with grocery carts at the supermarket. We're not weaving in and out or tailgating people with the wheels of our cart because the social norm is there. But somehow on the roads, that feels acceptable in some way. And so I think that the engineering component and the human factors component need to work together more closely so that we can understand these concepts more holistically.
I totally agree that the human factor and the ability to change human behavior, right? How do we figure out how it fits in our society, and then how can we change that as well? Because even something like drunk driving, while not completely eradicated, has is significantly different in our culture today than it was 3 decades ago. So that human factor, I think, is super important. Also, just given how many accidents and collisions are caused by human factors. So.
Absolutely.
As you'd mentioned, not a linear route to get to road safety. So if you're, talking to a young CARSP member or a young professional who actually has that drive and interest to want to get into road safety and have a career in road safety, what would be the advice that you would give them?
So I think I would start by telling them that it's a bumpy road. Again, no pun intended, but I never really realized, how politicized some road safety topics could be. Take speed safety cameras in Ontario as a recent example. You become an advocate for what you believe in, and you use that evidence to support your case. Sometimes it feels like being a lawyer. And as much as it can be challenging at times, I also feel as though it's extremely rewarding. It's a very rewarding field to work in. And so no one pursues a career, in my belief, in road safety without having a passion for that topic. And so my advice would be to let that passion fuel you and also not be afraid to get creative. I think we need bold solutions and passionate individuals to pursue careers in road safety if we want to achieve our goals of zero death and injuries on our roads.
Totally agree. Well, that's wonderful advice, and I hope our young CARSP members who are listening can take that advice with them, and any young professional who's looking to get into this injury, into this industry, because I think it's very, very important. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
I want to thank Dr. Fridman for taking the time to speak with me today. For anyone interested in sharing their experience in road safety and wanting to take part in a future interview like this one, I invite you to write us at info@carsp.ca. See you soon.